Well, let's see. Today we're going to look at Hebrews chapter 11. It's called the Heroes of Faith. It might take me 19 minutes to read this. So, looking at Hebrews 11. Now, faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. By faith, we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. By faith, Abel offered God a better sacrifice than Cain did. By faith, he was commended as a righteous man when God spoke well of his offering. And by faith, he still speaks even though he is dead. By faith, Enoch was taken from this life so that he did not experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him away. For before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleased God. And without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists, and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. By faith, Noah, when warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear, built an ark to save his family. By his faith, he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness that comes by faith. By faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. By faith, he made his home in the promised land like a stranger in a foreign country. He lived in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. By faith, Abraham, even though he was past age, and Sarah herself was barren, was enabled to become a father because he considered him faithful who had made the promise. And so from this one man, and he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and as countless as the sand on the seashore. All these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance. And they admitted that they were aliens and strangers on earth. People who say such things show that they are looking for a country of their own. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had an opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. By faith, Abraham, when God tested him, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. He who had received the promises was about to sacrifice his one and only son, even though God had said to him, "It is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned." Abraham reasoned that God could raise the dead, and figuratively speaking, he did receive Isaac back from the dead. By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau in regard to their future. By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of Joseph's sons and worshipped as he leaned on the top of his staff. By faith, Joseph, when his end was near, spoke about the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt and gave instructions about his bones. By faith, Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born because they saw that he was no ordinary child, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. By faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God, rather than enjoy the pleasures of sin for a short time. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking ahead to his reward. By faith he left Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He persevered because he saw him who is invisible. By faith he kept the Passover and the sprinkling of blood, so that the destroyer of the firstborn would not touch the firstborn of Israel. By faith the people passed through the Red Sea as on dry ground. And when the Egyptians tried to do so, they were drowned. By faith the walls of Jericho fell, after the people had marched around them for 7 days. By faith the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies, was not killed with those who were disobedient. And what more shall I say? I do not have time to tell about Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, who shut the mouths of lions, quenched the fury of flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, and who became powerful in battle and routed foreign enemies. Women received back their dead, raised to life again. Others were tortured and refused to be released so that they might gain a better resurrection. Some faced jeers and floggings, while still others were chained and put in prison. They were stoned. They were sawed in two. They were put to death by the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, destitute, persecuted, and mistreated. The world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and mountains and in caves and holes in the ground. They were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what was promised. God had planned something better for us so that only together with us could they be made perfect. All right. All of that, and I think we got about 5 minutes. All right, first question here. Which best describes faith? Assuming all will be well, a confident trust, or hoping for the best?
Hope for the best.
Hope for the best?
It's confident trust.
Personally, I lean toward the confident trust. The certainty of God's promises, right? Because all of those promises are based on God. What do you know about God?
He keeps all promises.
He keeps all of his promises, doesn't he? He's a loving God. He's almighty. When he says something, it will happen. Of course, I asked why, and on what is the Christian's faith based, and how is it illustrated on verse 3. What is our Christian faith based on? The Word of God, isn't it? How does verse 3 fit into all of this? Verse 3 is where he says, by faith we understand the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. Why do you believe in the creation account?
God said so.
God said so in his word, right? You ever argued with anybody about creation? An evolutionist? Win? Actually, you take it by faith, right? None of us were there. It's interesting how the evolutionists keep changing their story the last few years. They changed it when I was growing up, I remember that. There were those who were afraid when man landed on the moon. Any of you remember that?
Yeah.
There was one theory of evolution back then was called the Dust Bowl, where planet Earth started from a little speck of dust, and then all this dust from the universe kept hitting it, and piled up and piled up and piled up over billions of years, and we have the planet Earth. And they were afraid because there's no water and everything on the moon. When they hit the moon, they were going to sink in about 100 feet. They bounced. It was a rock. So much for the Dust Bowl theory, right? And of course, the theory of evolution has changed a lot since the time I went to school. When I went to school, the Earth was millions of years old. In 40 years since I've been at school, it has gone to billions. I must be older than 40 years old. That's the way they count years. But we take it by faith, right? This is what God said. We take God at his word because he is a faithful God who never goes back on his promises. So let science say all they want. We take God's creation of the world by faith. All right, how about number 2? Why is it impossible to please God without faith? And what's it say about salvation? First part there. Why is it impossible to please God without faith?
For all is an unclean thing, and all unrighteousness is from the
Isaiah says that even your righteous acts are filthy rags in God's sight, right? The only reason anything we do is pleasing to God is because of Jesus. He cleansed us of our sins. He wiped the slate clean. But if you don't have that, God isn't going to be happy with it. It's like Bill Gates gives $1 million to some relief to feed the hungry, and you give 50 cents, which is pleasing in God's sight. I shouldn't use Bill Gates, but I don't know what his theology is. Anybody know? I don't know what he is. Ted Turner, we'll pick on Ted Turner. He's an easy one to pick on. He gives $1 million, you give 50 cents. Which one's pleasing to God?
50 cents.
But $1 million.
Well.
Nice civic righteousness, but is God happy if it's not done in faith, though? What's it say about our salvation?
It's a sure thing.
A sure thing. Why?
God said so.
God said so. On what is it based?
Not on me.
Yeah.
Not on ourselves.
I'm glad that my salvation's not based on you.
Likewise.
And I would agree with you. If my salvation depended on me, I would be in big trouble. How many of us, yes, it's being recorded online. How many of us could be sure we did enough?
None of us.
How many of us would be sure we did the right things? How do we know what pleases God? If we were left on our own, you're in big trouble. But our salvation was secured by Jesus. You have God's word on it. He washed away your sins. Heaven is yours because of Him. How about number 3? What faith-filled actions of Noah, Abraham, Moses impress you most? And what obstacles, challenges that each face you have to overcome? What promises of God let each persevere in faith? Pick on Noah.
Building the big ark.
Big ark. And it didn't rain.
There he is, building this big boat
Yeah.
in the middle of nowhere.
And it took 120 years.
120 years. Of course, he wasn't silent during those 120 years. The Bible says he was a preacher of righteousness, so he's warning the people. And of course, you can just imagine the people laughing at him. Rain, a flood, come on. Until it started pouring.
Especially when he built it up on the hill, do ya?
Ended up on Ararat there. How about Abraham?
Sacrificed my only
His
son.
son, the one that was
Even go
supposed to
back.
have this, well, even
His
to
son.
have the son.
To
You
leave
didn't
his
even go before that.
To
God
leave
said, I'll
his
tell you what,
home.
I'm going to give you a promised land.
Okay.
Go.
Then he went.
And he went. He knew where he was going. How many of us use GPS?
I don't.
I had to go someplace in the cities the other day. I wasn't 100% sure how to get there. Turn on the GPS. I knew where I was going, but I needed something to guide me. Did God tell Abraham where he was going?
No, he said to a place I'll tell you.
All he said, go. I'll tell you when you get there. And he left. Now, this was not a 25-year-old man. How old was he? Yeah, he was about 75 years old. God made him a promise then. You're going to have descendants. You're going to have a son. Oh, wait a minute. You're 75 years old. Your wife is 65. Granted, there was a grandmother that just had quadruplets.
4, yeah.
Yeah.
65 years old. So we look and say, okay, 65. Abraham, 75. Did he get the promise right away?
Not right
No.
away. Not that
25
son.
It
years.
took 25 years. 25 years for God to fulfill His promise. I mean, you look at it, by that point, Abraham is pushing 100 years old. His wife, 90. Good as dead, the Bible says, yet they had a son. Jump ahead a few years. God came to him and said, this is your one and only son. Kill him. Sacrifice him. Did Abraham question it?
No.
No. He just went. Of course, you look at his interesting words. I always liked that when he was going up to the mountain. He turned to the servants and he said, stay here with the donkeys while we go up and we will come back. He knew there was going to be a resurrection, like he talks about here. He knew even if he plunged the sword, God would raise him from the dead. So figuratively speaking, he did do that, didn't he? How about Moses? Moses, another interesting character. Where did he spend the first 40 years of his life? In a palace. How many of you have lived in a palace? Those pictures back there. You think you're the king now?
The room where we clean fish.
Nobody said anything about being the king.
He thinks he lives in the palace now. Anyways, he spent 40 years in the palace. Was he proud of it? If you read through Hebrews here, he would rather suffer disgrace, right? What about the next 40 years?
Out in the desert.
Out in the desert. And all of a sudden he comes across this burning bush that burned but didn't burn. And God says, you're going to let my people go. I don't know, Lord. Find somebody else, right? In a way, he's kind of like us, isn't he? Reluctant, making excuses, but he went. Held on to God's promise. And then look at all the things Moses went through. Imagine going to President Obama and saying, do this. Well, he's going to Pharaoh. Let my people go. Right. And went back a number of times, all the plagues. And of course, when Pharaoh changed his mind, the people got a little upset, didn't they? Who were they mad at?
Moses.
Moses. They complained to him. So the Passover comes. They're let out. Oops, we're at the Red Sea. We're cornered. What did God do? How would you have liked to walk through that? I thought it would have been neat. I mean, I always wondered what those walls of water look like. I mean, you look at the movie The Ten Commandments, it was jello.
Yeah, but you'd have to have an awful lot of trust that that water didn't come down.
Yeah. It's kind of like, any of you ever been to the Sears Tower? What's it called now? The Willis Tower? Did you go up to the top?
Yeah.
Have you been there in the last couple of years? Ooh.
And at least 10
They got a
years.
platform now.
That goes out.
Sticks out. And you can walk. How many people would go on? I think the Grand Canyon has
They
one
have
too.
one
They have like
too.
a big horseshoe that goes
Yeah.
out glass. How many of you walk on it?
Not me.
No.
It takes a little trust to do that. That's kind of like walking through the Red Sea, right? Of course, they get to the other side, they're all happy, and how long did it take before they complain?
Very
next
quickly.
Didn't take too long. And then, we often don't talk about this, but there was a point where God was ready to wipe out the Israelites. He said, Moses, I've had it with the people. I'm going to wipe them out. I'm going to make you the head. Well, wait a minute here. I just got a raise and a bonus. Right? Promotion? What did he say?
No.
No.
Keep your
He did.
promise.
And, you know, and then you go through the whole list of people here. It's amazing what they did by faith. Now, it's easy for us to say, oh, I could do that. Really? We can't even do some of the little things. Could we do the big things? What else we got here? Well, we talked about obstacles, challenges. What promises of God led each to persevere in faith?
God placed that into his heart that he could trust.
God put faith in his heart that there's a better promise coming, isn't there? Better land. I think of every funeral we have. When a Christian dies, what can we say?
They're happy now.
Right. They're in heaven. Isn't that the goal? Isn't that why we're here? We're just pilgrims and strangers here. We're just passing through. I can pick on Adam here. Coming all the way from Arizona, right? Arizona. So what did you all pack when you got here? I mean, you're just visiting, right? Alma City is, in Pemberton, are not your permanent home. So how do you travel? I mean, I'm not picking on you, it's more. When you go on vacation, you're just visiting these places. They are not your permanent home. This is not your permanent home. Earth is not your permanent home. You have heaven waiting for you. And how are we gonna live that way, or do we want to cling to the things of this world? Got to do this, have that, and the other thing. Trust God. Live by faith. All right. How about 4? What advantage in our faith life do we have over the believers of the Old Testament? Well, let's start with Ellen.
Christ has come.
Yeah, you see the
Okay, they
fulfillment.
had faith in the Messiah, the Savior who was coming.
And we see
He already has come. Of course, keep in mind, are they saved any differently than we are?
that's perspective.
How are they saved? By faith in the Savior. How are we saved?
By faith.
Faith in the Savior. Could you say we have an advantage?
Yep, because we've seen how Jesus fulfilled all those prophecies in
Okay.
the Old Testament.
So we've got that knowledge. How do you grow?
Studying His Word.
Go back to His Word, right? Gospel and Word and Sacrament. Don't be content with what you got in confirmation. Let's see, who's confirmed last one? When were you confirmed? When were you confirmed? Last year? Remember everything? 2013. Okay. Do you remember everything? I'm going to pick on this one. Everything, yeah, that's what they say. You're only 2 years removed, and I would expect you would probably still know most of that stuff. How many of you were confirmed over 50 years ago?
Here am I, send me.
I don't know what Pastor Hornerberg's practices are. You give an examination?
Most of the time.
Would they, if we got together and made an examination, think they'd pass them?
Depends on the questions.
We would hope they would pass it, right? One thing that's always nice when you have an examination at church, there's some people who have been so far removed from a confirmation class, it's kind of nice to review those things.
That's right. It is right.
You knew it at one time, but you keep going back to it. I mean, how would you like it if your doctor graduated from med school back in 1955, but he hasn't opened up a book since? Would you want him to even give you a shot? Practice some medicine for how many years? But if he hasn't studied, shots are easy. Shots are easy.
Back then, though, they did shots in 55.
Oh yeah, doctors actually did. They made house calls. But imagine if you never studied again. If you don't study God's Word, you're going to get rusty. And what happens to rustiness?
Deteriorates.
Deteriorates. You want to keep feeding your soul. You want your faith to grow. And the way to do that is the gospel and word and sacraments. Receive communion for the strengthening of your faith. Study God's Word. Don't take everything I say as gospel truth, right? How many of you checked what I said this morning?
I will.
I don't know what I'm gonna do.
I think if you said something wrong, they would get it.
How do you know I didn't?
How do I know? Because of what we were taught.
Did you ask Pastor Hornberg? I can pick on him this way. No, if you think about it, if everybody, you know, if it's blatant, yeah. What if I just slide something in? Now, all of a sudden I start talking about the creation story. Start referring to everything as a story. And then after talking about the story, you know, Adam and Eve represent this. They weren't real people, but you can slip things in real quick. And what if nobody catches it? Or nobody says anything? How do you know? You have to go back to God's word. And I would expect, if I say something wrong, I would hope you would tell me. Pastors make mistakes. I know there are times where, a couple of times when I said something in the pulpit and I didn't realize I said it. And I caught myself once, made my sermon 5 minutes longer, because I don't even remember what it was. I said something, and if I would have left the statement the way it was false doctrine. But you could explain it, which I did, which added 5 minutes in my sermon. It happens. I went through a whole sermon once talking about Jacob's wife. Who was Jacob's wife?
Which one? Which one? Rachel or Leah?
Okay, no, not Jacob.
Isaac, Rebecca.
Isaac's wife.
Rebecca.
Who was Isaac's wife?
Rebecca.
Rebecca.
Huh. I kept calling her Rachel. Through the whole sermon.
I've done Joseph
That would
and
be me.
Jacob.
I preached the sermon 3 times. Had the same organist for all 3 services. At the end of it, she was a Christian day school teacher. We got talking after the last service. She says, "Who's Isaac's wife?" She says, "Rachel or Rebecca?" She couldn't remember. Well, obviously I didn't either. But nobody caught it except her. Listen, if I say something wrong, ask me about it. If it's not wrong, I'll explain it to you. And if it's wrong, I'm sorry, we'll correct it. All right. Last one here. What rebuke do you find in this chapter? And what encouragement? How about the rebuke? Big chapter. Don't get too attached to this world. Temporary. What do you have coming?
Eternal life.
We got heaven, but too often we live for the here and now like this world is everything. It is not. So you lose something. Is it the end of the world? No. Sometimes we act like it though. Don't get too clingy to things of the world. Even troubles, hardship, whatever. Remember what's coming. The Bible says that, actually the book of Hebrews talks about fixing your eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of your faith. Keep your eyes on him. You'll be fine. What encouragement do you have here?
Eternal life.
Okay, you guys
He
have
promises
eternal
it.
life.
He promises it.
Can the guys who he talks about in this chapter, can they encourage you?
Yeah, they've done things wrong, you know, too, but they're a good example of the faith that the Lord does take care of them.
You might say, I can't do it. Are you sure? Others have done it. Been persecuted, been stoned, cut in two. I mean, you go through the list of things that all these people did, what they encountered. And same God who supported them is the same God that supports you. And he's going to take care of it. He's got a promise. Promise is you have eternal life because of Jesus. Hang on to it. And it's like statement I heard, you know, we may think this world is great and everything else, but the best is yet to come. We have heaven. Well, do you got any questions? Yes? My hearing aids are working this morning. What was that? Oh. All right, let's close with the prayer that we have here. Lord, give us such a faith as this, and then whatever may come, while tasting now the hallowed bliss of an eternal home. Amen. Well, you have a good day now.
That's fine.